Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for being here. We are so excited to be a part of your Wednesday, and you are with the community. This is a really exciting part of what we do here, which is we come together every single week and we have a top level mastermind with experts from around the country. Today we have 3 for the price of 1. So that's awesome. And thank you guys for being here. One of the things that we're going to be covering today is how to structure your business looking forward, right? There's been a lot of people like looking down, looking backward. Man, this year's been tough, and that's the past and that's the present, and we understand that. But thinking about the future, that's where we can start to find some of our hope and enthusiasm and really get ready for what's to come, because there's some exciting stuff happening in real estate and we need to be ready for it. So we're going to plan our next year, because as my dad used to say to me all the time, if you don't work you got to plan the work and then work the plan. That's what it was. And so without any further ado, I'm going to bring 3 superstar agents, coaches, trainers, people who are real icons in the real estate industry, up on stage here to walk us through how to think about planning our business and setting goals for 2024. Thank you guys, John, Jason, and Jake, all for being here today. Really excited to have 3 superstar agents for the price of 1.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the
Hey, so what I thought we'd do, Jake and I we're trying to figure out, and Jason, just how we want to do this. But what I want to talk about is I just want each of us to start a little bit about our opinions about goals and planning and why it's important to us. And then we're going to go into a slideshow and talk a lot about that. So I'm going to go ahead and start. First, I want to let you guys know, for you that are in Southern Oregon, we are going to have a get together on December 6th at Four Daughters between 4:30 and 6:30. Love you to be there. Put it in your calendar, December 6th, 4:30 to 6:30 at Four Daughters. Bring some friends. You can bring whoever you want, guys. We're going to have a good time. But when we're talking about goals and we're talking about business plans, guys, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Everybody has an opinion. And what I want to honor each of you for being here today is that for most people, they just don't stop to think about it. So you're here today to actually stopping to think about it and then taking some action of putting some things on paper is what is so critical. And that's such a big deal, guys, because most people don't stop to think. They say they're busy all the time, but they're not thinking about what they're doing. They're not thinking about what they did and how they got there and where they're going to change coming years. So we're going to talk about that today as we move forward. So that's what I want to think about today. Is you don't have to have it all figured out today in this time, but I want you to take some really good notes and make a commitment that you're going to take some time to plan this. And then if you start building it and you have questions or your concerns, you're not sure, I'll take a call from any of you and schedule a time that we can walk through it together individually.
So Jake here, business planning, goal setting. This is actually going right into, we do an annual goal setting meeting every year. And I think our team's meeting is in a couple of weeks. And so a lot of this, it helped really kind of get planned for that too. But yeah, I think that we have a specific way of doing all of our goal setting and business planning, and it really encompasses, what our big goal is. And obviously, when we go into slideshow, we're going to talk a little bit about personal and business goals. But when we're talking about business, what that big goal number is, and how we get to it, what we need to do to achieve it. And we really get granular on the activities that we have to do and the focus areas and so forth. And some of the business plan stuff, some of you may have already seen, but we'll go through it in detail. And I'll also be sharing a Google Drive that has a lot of the resources that we use. Real quick, I do want to introduce a couple of people. Lucy Baker, who reached out to me via text at EXPCon and said, "Hey, you're in my upline. I've never met you." And sure enough, she was literally at EXPCon standing like next to me in the same class. And so we got to meet, and this is, I think, her first time here at the community. And then also Andrew Title, that's how you pronounce your last name, Andrew. Anyway, Andrew, a really cool story. When I was attracting agents early on, I had met him at an open house in Palm Springs, and we got to know each other, had coffee, and stayed in touch over the years. And he had since moved down to San Miguel, Mexico, and he just came onto EXP, I think, a couple days ago. So big welcome to Andrew. I'm glad you're here, and look forward to having you part of the community. So anyway, that's what I got for now.
Love it.
Perfect.
Welcome, guys.
Well, I'll just jump in real quick. One of my goals was to one day be a part of something like this, right? To be with top producers like you two and just be involved with this. And it's nice when you set your goals and you start seeing them be accomplished. Some of what we're talking about today, it's really breaking it down into the simple daily tasks that need to be done. And what I've realized over the trial and error of the years is that not doing goal setting, we're not, we're just kind of flailing around, right? We're not really knowing where we're going. And I realized by doing the goal setting, I've got more time with my family. I've got more time with friends. I've got more freedom. So if I would say if there's any core 90 not to miss, it would be this one. 2024 is going to be huge. I'm excited you guys are here and we can just get it started.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen, and really to piggyback what Jason said is really, when you put stuff down on paper, and John said this too, when you put down stuff down on paper on what you want to do, you can make this business extremely easy. You can get success really easy if you have that plan, like Jeff had mentioned, and then working that plan, because then you can wake up each and every day and just do what you told yourself you were going to do. And you do that and the results come. So, and rather than focusing on results, and our team is big on not focusing so much on the results, but focusing on the activities that get the results. And so let me share my screen and we'll jump into it. I will disclose that I'm good at running a team and running businesses. I'm not good at setting up slides. And so this is, don't look at the slides as much. Anyway, so welcome to the training today. First, we're going to talk a little bit about business versus personal goals, because obviously business is what a lot of us are talking about, but a lot of times personal flows into business. When we're healthy, we tend to do better in business. And when we're doing better in business, we tend to spend some time in health. And so we want to talk a little bit about breaking that up. And when we get into a few other slides and a couple documents that you can look at, you can do multiple sets of goals, one maybe on the personal side, one on the business side. So I'll let you jump in on some of this, John.
Yeah, guys. So, Jake said, personal goals can affect business. Business affects personal, and business affects personal both ways. And I'm going to tell you guys, I've never seen that more. Who of you have ever had to be in a challenging marriage and it's hard to get to work? If you've never experienced that, wonderful for you. But I certainly have through the years. If you're not as healthy, do you have the same energy to do what you need to do? Because if you don't have health, it's hard to have the willpower. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. If willpower is a limited resource, when do we actually get to them? So some of these, with these personal goals, I want to put all these together, guys. And because also when we talk about self-improvement, most of the time, most agents' challenges is between our ears. It's how we think. It's what we're doing. What disciplines do we have? So when we talk about measurable, health is pretty easy, right? And that, okay, I want to be a certain weight, and I want to have a certain fitness. It's very measurable, the result. But some of these other ones, like family, how do you measure that? How do I put that on a scale? So a lot of times when I tell guys is that with family, like with your spouse, your children, it's really activities. Are you going to go on a date night once a week with your spouse? What activities you're going to do with your children, so that there's benchmarks that you can actually see, because we know if we do these things, everything is going to get better. So a lot of times we're looking at that end goal. Some of them aren't as measurable. How do we measure spiritual? We can't look and say, well, I did 10 deals. That's pretty straightforward. But what things do we need to do in that part of our lives that we can check that we can have a list of what we're doing every week, not to overwhelm ourselves. And I'm going to say most of these, especially personal goals, what are the one or two things that you can do every week that is going to be moving the bar?
Yep. And when we get to the 1-3-5 business plan sheet, a lot of that can be broken down. And so like when you have family, you can say, oh, I want to travel more with my family, or I want to spend more time with my family. And then some of those areas that could be, I'm not gonna work after 5, or just different things like that you can get dialed in to what you're going to change or what you're going to do in 2024 to accomplish that part of the goal. Same goes along lines with business as well. So.
And these personal goals are such a big deal, guys, in that we're trying to have a full life. The truth is, sometimes in our lives, we need to, there's a saying that we want to be in balance. The reality is we're rarely in balance. We're trying to find that spot, but sometimes we have to be out of balance. For many agents today, they're struggling. Hopefully everybody here is not struggling and is just figuring out how to take it to the next level. But the truth is many agents are struggling. It's a time they may need to be out of balance in that their business. They may need to work harder than they've ever have to work, because if you're not paying the bills for your family, it's pretty tough. But one of the ways to do that is to really be honest with your family and sit down and talk about where you're at right now. Talk about what we need to do right now. And here's the sacrifice I need to make. And how can I get support around that? If you're needing to work a lot more hours than you did before, how do you talk to your spouse and your children? Here's why I'm doing this right now. Here's why we need to do this. How can I get your support around that? Because I'll tell you, I have been amazed as I've had those conversations with my family, my wife, my kids, and other people I know, when they actually have those conversations with their family, how supportive they are, because we actually talk the truth. Yep. And then the key is, if we say we're going to have to work more, we're going to have to do this, then the key is we better be accountable for it and actually do it. And when we're working, we're really working, and we're not just disappearing from the house. Jason, do you have anything to add on personal goals or things that have helped you?
No, well, yes, I do. And this is, when we're talking about personal goals, and it goes in line with what you two were saying. It's not just about business. You could be highly successful, selling 100 homes a year, a ton of money, everything's going great. But if your health isn't in line, then you're going to miss out, right? If you're not mentally there, it's going to be tough for you. So, some of the things that I've done, just to kind of share the last year, is I've recommitted to getting back to the gym. And I'll tell you, when I don't go at 5 a.m., my day doesn't go as planned. So it's not just about what we're going to do for production or our business, but what are we doing to keep ourselves healthy? What are we doing to keep ourselves in the right mindset to where we can accomplish those goals that we're setting for our business? So it's right in line with what you guys are saying. So I'm excited to be a part of this. So let's just throw that in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can if you don't have the health and you can't enjoy the fruits of your labor, then what's the purpose, right? So when we get into the business goals, there's lots of different, obviously, when we're as agents, we're looking at, okay, what's our production? How many units do we want to sell? What kind of GCI do we want to generate? But really, I like to break it down to even like what's going in my pocket, right? When it comes to the dollar amount. But then there's, other goals that kind of flow into that, like some marketing goals, or maybe some of us that are doing some recruiting or attraction, that might be a focus area to really grow this year, to jump into that. Or maybe creating other income buckets, which obviously revenue share could be one, or other ancillary businesses or other types of businesses that you want to create buckets of income with, or retirement savings types goals and so forth. So let's jump into before we set goals, we really have to gather information, because a lot of times the past, or most of the time, the past will help us determine the future. And early in my career, I did not do a very good job on tracking. And I think that if there's one big takeaway from this training, is going into 2024 with heavy tracking everything you're doing. And there's lots of different ways to do it, but tracking your activities, tracking every part of your business and in your personal life. So that way you can use that for the following year, and you can look at the results from what that gathers. So first thing, before we can really set any goals, we've really got to start gathering some information, whatever information we can pull from our previous year, this year, or in the past. John, you want to touch on some of that?
Yeah. So what I like to look at is to understand, when we're setting goals, it's like I've had people come to me and say they did 60 deals, they've done, let's just say 8 deals for the last 3 years, and now they want to go to 50 deals. Well, there's got to be some major change. I'm not saying you can't do it, but there's got to be some major changes. But for most people, it's what did I do last year? So I want to look at how many deals did I do the last 12 months, and maybe look even the 12 months before that. Then we want to figure out on that what the average commission is. Many people talk to me, and I've had really smart agents come to me and say, well, what's your goals? I want to do 50 transactions. I say, okay, well, what does that represent? How much gross revenue is that? Well, about $1 million, or about let's just say 500,000. And I say, okay, well, what's your average commission? Well, I'm not really sure. Okay, well, that number doesn't work out. So then we work it out, and I figure out, their average commission. So if you want to do 50 deals and you made and it was going to be 500, you'd be making 10,000 a deal. Well, the truth is I've had it the opposite ways, where sometimes that agent's average commission is 7,500. They'd have to do a lot more deals. And I've had others where their average commission was 15, which means they'd only have to do about 35 deals. A business plan for 35 deals is very different than a business plan for 50. So we want to understand the truth of our businesses and not live in generalities. Generalities is actually a place where victims live. And a victim position is not a great position to be where you want to grow. So we want to get an understanding of the truth of where we're at. And the truth can be scary right now. The truth can be scary about how little people have in their bank accounts, how few deals they have in escrow. And it's like, if I just avoid it, somehow it's going to get better. But there's a saying, biblically even, the truth will set you free because you can start moving forward. So we want to look at the last 12 months and say, how many deals did I do? What was the gross commission? Before EXP took any money, you had any expenses. So for example, we're going to take that number, and just as simple as if you did 100,000 of gross commissions and you did 10 transactions, what was your average gross commission?
Yeah. And you can also, and you also want to kind of figure out what your average sales price is for you and your community. And like, with our team, we're
both those items, right?
Yeah. We want to gather that information because for plugging in purposes, when we get into the, future slides and so forth, it'll help you determine what your goal is going to be, or what your goal, when you put your number in, like what you want. For us, like when we do our goal setting meeting, I want the agents just to give me what's your income? What's your net income goal? You want to make 100,000, 200,000, what is it going to be? Then from there, I already have all the data about their past, and I can literally plug it in and determine exactly what they need to do, all the way down to how many conversations they need to have, how many appointments they need to have, and so forth. And we'll go through some of that exercise today, so that way you all can have an opportunity to kind of do the same thing. But obviously, if some people might be more on the buyer side versus the seller side, sometimes those commissions can be a little bit different. But yeah, I think just gathering that main information will help you determine what that end goal will need to look like. If you want to double your income, then you probably need to double your transactions or make changes in your business to do so.
Well, and that's it, Jake. So for some of you that have been doing this a long time, you keep QuickBooks, you could go back and say, what percentage of my income was expenses? What did I ending up with after this gross? But for the general rule, we're going to say, if you're a solo agent, most of the time you're going to be at about 30% expenses by the time you pay everything out. So if you're making 200,000 in gross commissions, you're going to net, what is that? 140, right? So you're going to net 140. So we need to understand that. So that's working backwards in terms of, what do I need for many people? It's like, how much do I really need to live every month? And then the idea is, okay, now what are my goals to be able to put savings away? As we talk about wealth, part of this is wealth here, and maybe some of you saw a video recently. The first thing is we got to figure out how to make money. Then we got to figure out how to make more than what we spend. And then at that point, how do we figure out, and we're going to talk more about that, how do we start making money on our money? So then I want to look at the buyers and sellers sides. Then my preference is to break out, where did those transactions come from? Do you know how many of them came from open houses? So if you did 24 transactions last year, do you have them broke out by which sources or pillars? I like to call them pillars. Jake likes to call them sources, and he types, so he put sources. So what sources did they come from? And we argued about it yesterday too, by the way, guys,
it's sources. Don't worry about it.
So the idea is, how many came from open houses? How many came from internet leads? How many came from cold calling? Because once we look at those pillars, we're going to see what's the truth of your business. Oftentimes agents think they were doing a lot more deals from one pillar that they really weren't.
And you should be able to find that information out real easy by looking in your CRM. If you're using a CRM, which all of you should be, when you get a lead, it doesn't say pillar, it says source. And so where it comes from, but that would be your source. Just kidding.
We do this all the time, you guys. So we're always battling.
Anyway, but yeah, you'll be able to find that information, and you know, depending on what kind of platform, we have a platform called CC that we use, but you can put it in a spreadsheet and determine. And if you're spending money on, you know, pay-per-click or realtor.com leads or whatever, you can start to figure out how much are you spending on those sources? How much did you make on those sources? Is it a good idea to keep spending on those sources, or are we not doing the follow-up like we should be doing, and so forth? So there's a lot of parts to it, but yeah, breaking it down by source will give you a lot of information and help you determine what you want to do, where you want to spend your money, and where you want to focus on. A good thing, when we were at the regional rally yesterday up in Seattle, Tacoma, one thing that caught my attention and was a good reminder is the squirrel analogy, where, and I'm kind of guilty of that, like I'll be looking at working somewhere here to lead generate, and then I look over here and, oh, here's another good idea, and I move over there, and then I see another idea and I move over there, rather than going deep into 1, 2, or 3 different methods of prospecting. There's lots of different ways to gather business, and you got to focus on what's going to be best for you and your personality and that you'll enjoy doing, but more importantly, what you'll actually do consistently and over for the whole year. And so picking out a few of those. And so some of it might be working your SOI, or maybe it's doing open houses. I mean, one of the guys on that stage, he does 10 to 15 open houses a month, but in September, he made 50,000 in GCI just off open houses. So they work. A lot of this stuff works, but only if it's done consistently. So,
and I like that, Jake, what you said. We want to reduce complexity. Complexity is death for most of us. So that's an idea, is like, if we're going to have 7 sources that we're focused on, that's impossible unless you've got a massive team and a lot of infrastructure. For most agents, it's what are those 2 or 3 of understanding what's happened. But I know it's simple. I mean, I know when I got started, it was like, I door knocked and I did open houses. I had no referrals at that point because I didn't know anybody. As my time went on, all of a sudden, I started doing the same amount of deals, but I was doing it less time. But I'm like, why aren't I growing? Because I'm getting all these referrals. What I realized was I quit doing the open houses. I quit doing the thing that was making the money, right? Because now it was getting easier. And I see that a lot of times people come to me and say, you know, I'm going to quit doing Zillow. And I say, okay, well, you know, it's really expensive. It costs a lot. Well, let's go back and see what your return on that was. What ended up sometimes being 30% of their business, 40%. I'm like, if you give that up, what are you going to replace that with? That's not that easy. I'd rather be paying for those leads, not working those to get referrals, so they're going to be cheaper the next way around, right? Because if you pay 35% for a lead that you close, if you can get referrals and you've got a past client, now those are going to be cost you nothing to get the referrals. So break it out, guys, because that gives clarity.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and here you find a lot of everything that is being talked about is breaking it down. So I'm going to jump real quick on, you know, the units that we've set as our goal, and then knowing what the average sales price is and what that commission is. When I finally started doing that in my business, I realized that my goal was more achievable than I thought it to be, because, you know, now I finally understood what the average sales price was. I understood what the average commission was. You know, in our area, the average sales price is around $450,000. So our average commission hovers about $12,000. So I know if we wanted to make, you know, if an agent wanted to make 120,000, they have to sell 10 units, right? Sometimes when we put that number out there without breaking it down, and we think, okay, we want to make 200,000, we have to sell 40 units. So kind of what you were saying, John, really breaking that down, then it helps you understand. Now, once you know what that goal is, that's everything else we're getting into, is where you put your resources, your sources, or your pillars, whichever ones you're using. And then, you know, breaking that down into what your goals are going to be. So I just want to throw that in there.
And also adding on to that, we're in a business, guys. Anybody should be able to ask you, you know, at any point, what's your average GCI and what's your average sales point? If you don't know that on a quarterly basis, you're not treating it like a business. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I mean, you get to do what you want to do. It's your own business. But the top achievers I know, there's a few unicorns, okay? But the majority, I could ask that question, they're going to know, because that's the accountability. Something in this, Jake, that I didn't add, you know, is there's a couple ways to increase income, and we're going to talk about this. One is we increase our deal count. The other is we increase our price point. What can we do differently to do, right? What's that, Jake?
as well as commission. I don't know how many people, if you take a 6% commission, if you're
Right.
taking these things, you take a 3.5% versus 2.5% on that side. Even if you're doing 5, I mean, commissions are obviously that's a whole nother course on what's going on in the world with commissions. But there's going to be a lot of changes, I think, with how commissions are split up, and so you can give yourself a pretty big raise when you go from 3 and 3 to 3.5 and 2.5 on a 6% listing.
Well, and John, and Jake, you guys have been mentioning these sources and so forth. But one of the things that I hear kind of coming forward here is that a focus on KPIs or these key performance indicators, our metrics in our business. I love thinking of our business like it's an airplane and you've got all the dials in front of you. And if you just don't look at the dials, you're going to crash. Right? It's not going to go well. But if you focus on the dials, you can actually fly the plane without looking out the window most of the time, right? Because you're just watching the instrument panels. Jake was talking about he uses Sisu for that. I'm a spreadsheets guy, and it doesn't matter how you do it, guys, as much as it matters that you do it. But I'm curious from our panel today, what do you believe what are the KPIs that every single agent, no matter what level your business, if you're selling 5 houses a year, you're selling 50, you're selling 500, what are the KPIs that you need to be watching on a regular basis or even understand? John, you were saying you should be able to know what your average GCI is per transaction. I would agree.
So,
yeah.
So we simplify it. I mean, and John and I kind of went back and forth a little bit on it, but it really, for us, you cannot sell a property. You cannot help a client without a conversation. And so we simplify, and I didn't make this up. This is what a lot of other big teams, a lot of companies do, but we're focused on waking up each and every day, having real estate related conversations. And then that starts the other KPIs, those are the lead measures. So I'm a big fan of not focusing on our results. When we have our team meetings, we do celebrate some of the results, but I like celebrating much bigger the activities. When someone goes out and does door knocking, or someone gets a win by having, makes 100 calls or does something that we know is what gets to that result. Because the results, the goals, none of it happens without those lead measures, right? And so focusing on that and putting that on paper and putting that plan together really will help you get to that spot. But conversations for us, conversations to appointments set, to appointments met, to signed. So we have, it's just a regular pipeline for us for those for the main part of doing business. But we have in Sisu, like I'll just share kind of my screen when we do and anybody can get Sisu. I don't know how much it is for a solo agent. I'll have a link and you guys can take a look at it. But we track all of this stuff. And some of this is customized. So like number of dials, how many connects, conversations, but we get down to—
Hey, Jake, would you reshare your screen?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I think I disrupted that.
So this is Sisu, and this can, again, you can do this in a lot of different ways on the spreadsheet or whatever. This is just a dashboard that we use through Sisu. And I mean, how many hours in the office, how many hours prospected, how many 5-star reviews, how many social posts, how many social comments did we do, how many social likes did we do? These are all things that I think get you to a conversation or are part of a conversation. And exercise, we even have exercise, or an agent might throw in some of their own stuff, like how many days did I turn my phone off at 5 p.m. for family life and stuff like that. So these are the types of ones that we use as a team.
And why measuring things become a bigger deal is I talk to agents right now that are struggling or aren't having the same results as they had before. I'll say to them, well, do you know what your metrics were? For many agents that got in the business after 2015, 16, a lot of them that were doing 10 to 20 deals have no idea where their business came from because the market was so nuts. It was just a matter of, I made some social posts and I had some friends and, everything just came. And I'm like, I'm happy everyone made money, but the reality is that is not business. And we are back to this is a business right now. It's a tougher business. And those that are tough and those that measure and hold themselves accountable and create discipline are going to come out of this time stronger. Those that aren't are going to disappear. And the beauty right now is none of us like to see anyone disappear, and I don't like to see anybody hurting. However, what I do know is that the agents that work through this and come out stronger will be able to have more market share and their life will get easier again. I started up here in 2012, really, when it's about what the transaction number is now. The difference is we had about 40% less agents because of the clean out. And I love those 12, 13, 14 years because there wasn't nearly the competition. And realize that's what's happening right now. There's agents are getting out, they're giving up. There's so many people that just aren't going to work right now because it's just fear often will force people to be inactive, and they can stay in that fear. Those that aren't fearful right now and go and do the work are going to come out so much stronger, guys. So if you're a person that says, I get scared of numbers, it's not that scary. Reach out to us. Let us help you. Watch us again. Go on the internet, because I know everybody on this call, this stuff, we always say, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple to do, really, if you want it to be. Now, easy, it's just a matter of the discipline you choose to create and your why, which we're not going to get into whys today, really, but what is your why?
Yep. Yeah. So we do what's called the 135 business plan. Some of you may have heard this. I don't know where it originated, but my coach introduced it to me years ago, and we've implemented it as part of our annual goal setting meeting. And I'll jump to this slide. Basically, I'm gonna actually just share a screen. Let's see. This is. Everyone's going to get this pamphlet. You'll get these worksheets and so forth, so that way you can use it later. But I want to kind of go through it. Brian Eisenhower is my coach, and he's got an entire platform. He's does a lot of coaching with a lot of teams across the country. Anyway, the single page business plan, basically it's 135. You got your main goal, which could be your GCI, your volume, your income, or a combination of all of it, right? I generally will put, the total GCI that I want, or that total volume for our team, the GCI, and so forth. And there's ones for solo agents or for teams. This is obviously a team example, but a solo agent example would look like this: close 45 transactions. But that's what we want to get to. But then we need to break it down. And the way this system does it is you break down and determine 3 focus areas, 3 areas of focus. And again, you could do one for personal life and then a whole separate one for business, right? And 3 focus areas that are going to help you achieve that goal. 3 big areas that, and he puts it into pretty good English here. Make it once you've identified your number 1 goal, establish 3 focus areas that need attention over the following year. These focus areas should represent some of your more daunting tasks that will require a lot of work, assistance, and input from other people. They are the big tasks that they are always looming in the back of your mind that never seem to get done. Some people say, I've been wanting to do video. I've been wanting to do video. I've been wanting to do recruiting. I've been wanting to do attraction. But we never do, right? And so that it could be one of those items. That could be one of the focus areas. For example, on this business plan here, they've put establish an online presence, or lead generation for new business every day, and then organize SOI in a CRM database and systematically grow it and contact it. Those are just 3 focus areas. You could have a number of different focus areas. And again, you'll get all of this information if you want to do a 135 business plan, because this is really more of the business planning. In a little bit, we'll go down to really breaking down some of the activities, but when you come down to the objectives here, you've got 5 objectives for each focus area. And these are specifically meant to be 5 specific objectives that are in alignment with each focus area. Each objective should represent a specific action. So an activity that you're going to do that will help accomplish, or that will lead into that focus area. Does that make sense on those?
So Jake, I shared both of these PDFs in the chat just now, so that everybody has access.
Yeah, and on the last page of the slide deck, you'll get a link to the Google Drive that has all of this, including the slide deck, just so you know. But, example for online presence: establish an online presence, set up and or update all social media network profiles, establish general action plan for communicating on each network. So they're really breaking it down to specific things that they want to do. Then this business plan gets put on your wall above your computer, and then you just stay focused. You don't squirrel away to other things throughout the year. You just, hey, this is the plan. We know that this is going to help you achieve your goal, and you stick with it and you accomplish it. Sometimes some of these things are going to be project oriented. and you might jump on it. If you're like me, I try to get it done before January 15th and I get it all implemented, but it's stuff that's meant to be done throughout the course of the year to help you build your business and obviously achieve your goals. So any questions?
Well, let's look at that, Jake. Let's look at that online presence. So we're talking about setting up all your social channels. Now, the internet and social channels for many people is a major waste of time. I would ask most people, how much time are you spending on social every day, scrolling randomly that's not proactive? But when we started grounding this, we're like, okay, here's what do I need to do? And you can look through that and say, okay, I need to make 2 posts a day. If you're just straight on Facebook, maybe you're doing TikTok, but the idea is, what are the actions I need to take every day in that? So I need to do 1 personal and I'm going to do 1 business every day. I'm going to make sure that I like or DM at least 15 or 20 a day. Then I'm getting off that stinking social network and getting to work. Because I can tell you, nobody should be spending an hour, half a day on Facebook if they really want to grow their. It's just a time suck. I mean, it is the greatest time suck today of Americans. But it's still a great tool. We just have to understand how to use it as a tool, not it using us. Most of us, it uses us.
Yeah, it can be a great tool unless you're just scrolling and looking at the reels and so forth. But it's, if you have a plan, like you're going to do a specific amount of reels a day, or, I talked to an agent at the rally, and she did a reel every single day for the last year. And that was probably part of her goal or her plan, her business plan for the year. So, but different areas, lead generation, meet with an account, specific actions that they can track, because you can develop a spreadsheet or use Sisu or something, and then you track it each day saying, I did this thing, I checked this off, I checked this off. That way you're tracking what you're doing and holding yourself accountable.
Everybody should have lead generation.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and really for most agents, these first 2 and 3 are really mandatory. Lead generation, and what are you doing? If you're a new agent, you might not have much of a past client base, but for everyone else, it's like that. Those 2 need to be in there hardcore. But how are you actually going to work them? What are the pillars you're going to work in there? And I'm going to tell, for most people, unless you've got a huge business and you haven't been working your sphere of influence, but for those of you that have been working your sphere of influence, and that's where your business has come the last few years, you're going to have to add another lead generation source. It is not going to pay out, and you're already seeing it. I would bet everybody in here that had a big sphere of influence business has their businesses dropped off significantly. And so the idea is we're going to have to add another pillar or 2 or source to make that difference. But realize the beauty about doing that is you're building clients now that can add to your database and your sphere that's going to keep paying you down the road.
Yep. In this Google Drive too, you'll have a sample plan for teams too. I know there's a few teams on the call today, and so like when we're doing it for our team, the agents will all, including myself, will do our own single page business plan, right? And that's for us. But then I take all that information to help determine what the team business plan is, especially when it comes to that annual goal. I take all of the incomes or all the GCI goals of all the agents, and then I formulate our team goal. And then our main focus, obviously, for the year is to help all of those agents get to that goal so that the team's reaching their goal. And the focus areas might shift a little bit, but some of the input from the agents' focus areas or objectives might flow in and become, if there's enough agents that say we want to do this, then the team might implement that as a main focus area to help those agents accomplish their focus areas, right? So this will all be in there. There's examples of both, and then also just blank fillable ones that you can use to fill in. Again, it's just a 1-page business plan. It's nice and clean. It's easy. That's what attracted me to it. So what else do we have on that? So yeah, this is just helps you create that vision. Now, anything you want to touch on, Jason?
Yeah, going over this, the first thing I think of is when I've talked to a lot of newer agents or just agents that are struggling and they say, well, I'm doing lead generation, right? Because we know we have to do that. That's got to be in your business plan. Are you understanding what that lead generation is? So I used to be really big on just the amount of calls. And then I realized throughout my career, that's not the calls, it's the contacts like we talked about earlier. And then understanding how to break that down. So when you're doing your business planning, it's not just what you're writing down there, but what education are you giving yourself to know what tools you need, what resources, what leverage, and education to be able to accomplish that task. So some of the things I'm sure we're going to touch on it is knowing what leverage throughout your business. I have a TC now. I'll never go without having a TC because I was wasting my time on files when I should have been doing lead generating or online presence. So really just kind of breaking it down to doing your business plan, but breaking down the individual items on your business plan to understand how to use those, and take history of what people have done that's been successful and implement that. If we know it's 100 contacts for 2 sales, then we know we got to put 100 contacts in our business plan, not just lead generation. So just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, and that would be in that objectives area, like what you want to accomplish. I know when I first got into real estate I didn't have all this, but on my calendar, on my Google Calendar, every Friday, there was an item that was there for 30 minutes that just said, add 10 new contacts to your database. It wasn't that I was going to do it on that Friday. It was that it was in my calendar and I'd have to see it every week so that my mind stayed focused on adding new contacts. So when I would meet somebody, a friend would introduce me, I would try to remember that person, add them to my database. Growing the database is really an incredible thing that everyone should be doing. I've got agents on a team that have 50 people in their database. I'm like, we've got to grow that. You've got to get that, because the more you build that database, the more automation can happen, the more activity, the more hand raisers come, just the more it provides you to not have a situation where you sit there and you're like, what do I do next? When you have a database, you don't have anything to do, you just call and have conversations with people. So, but back to what you were saying, Jason, is when we get into the next slides and a little bit, we really break down some of the numbers and the conversion rates, and some of it I'll be able to share. The tool I can't share, but it can be replicated, or someone could send me their information. I can formulate it for you, but we'll do some examples of that, because I like to break it down all the way down to, if someone says they want to make 100,000 or whatever, I can break it down to exactly how many conversations they need to have, because I know how many conversations it takes to get to an appointment, how many appointments actually show up to the appointment, how many appointments end up signing a listing agreement or a buyer rep agreement, which is going to be really new for everybody moving forward. I'm assuming, if you're not already using those, but I know our team will be implementing buyer rep agreements over the next year. So it breaks it down that way. Every person on our team, we just know that what we have to do every day. We know what we need to do to have those conversations and get to those appointments and just focus on those activities. Now, obviously, on conversations, it could be making calls, cold calls, circle prospecting, for sale by owner, expired prospecting, door knocking, open houses, calling your SOI, calling old leads, whatever it is. Those are all paths. And when John was talking about, your sources, and you're figuring out where most of your business came from last year, you might start there and focus and double down in those areas because you had success there already, and focus on the areas that you're going to be really consistent with, that you enjoy. Some people just don't ever want to door knock. Some people don't want to cold call. Some people don't want to talk to people. And those are the people I tell them to find another industry. Because if you don't want to talk to people, it's going to be tough to sell real estate. So,
Jake, you're so mean. Why do you say it that way? Like, why are you telling the truth like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Jake taught me years ago. It's a contact sport, guys. Right? I love when you said that, Jake. Like, a lot of people play football, but remember, this is a contact sport. If you're not contacting people, you're not going to win. Simple as that.
And obviously there's a lot of business comes inbound, but it doesn't come inbound without doing some type of activity to cause that inbound, right? Obviously when I started out, I cheated a little bit. I threw money at marketing, but not the easiest way to do it for everyone. And that helped some of the inbound, but even the inbound, still have to talk to them. and maybe 1 out of 100 people that are inbound and I talk to are ready to buy or sell at that point, right? Or a couple. So what do we have to do for the other 98, where the majority of the gold is at? We have to do the follow-up, right? So that means we've got to pick up the phone and call, send out texts and so forth. So let's jump into anything else you want to add, John or Jason, before we jump into some of the little bit more detailed metrics?
Yeah, I'd say, this saying at the bottom, guys, those without a vision are lost. Think about that. What is your vision? How committed are you to your vision? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Many years ago, when I was in a coaching program, coach said, you've got to be willing to do whatever it takes. But usually if you're willing to do whatever it takes, you don't have to do whatever it takes. But it's that mindset. And then the other is how committed. There's a difference between being committed and liking the idea. And you'll find that most people that produce at the highest level have a huge level of commitment versus they like the idea or they think it would be fun. It's what's that level of commitment to hit where you want to go. And that's what we're saying. It doesn't have to be complicated. The truth is it has to be specific. And it has to be, what is your level of commitment to do this no matter what? Because guys, there's always something that's going to get in the way of our goals. Every day, there's something that's fighting to stop you from doing what needs to be done. And you've got to be the master of deciding that nothing's getting in the way that's not life or death, that's going to stop me from hitting the goals. That's going to help me achieve what I want and have my family live the life that I want for them.
Yeah, we call that the whirlwind. Whirlwind, it gets in our way and sidetracks us. That's why I have to do the gym first thing in the morning if I want to do it at all. And we need to deal with that. Money making activities is what our main focus should be daily. And really that's going to come down to prospecting, showing homes, going on appointments and so forth. Obviously you want to block off certain amounts of time to work on your business. And there's certain parts of your business that you've got to deal with current escrows and so forth like that. But you don't negotiate with that time that it takes to build your business and to generate business. You cannot negotiate with that. And depending on how big your number is, the bigger your number, the more the sacrifice. And it's, you've got to be willing to sacrifice. And if it's really big, then you're either sacrificing time or you're going to sacrifice money by leveraging, hiring, using software to leverage or so forth. So anything else from you, Jason?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in real quick because I know we're getting into some details here that, I've been really big lately on just working our business, what we have to do. This is all we want from this is to help everybody on this Zoom. So understanding that there's a business plan that's going to be worked. It's either the one that we do or the one that we have to do for somebody else, right? So getting in here and really taking this serious, knowing that you're going to have to do a business plan, let's make it your own, right? Let's make it grow. I'm a firm believer that in our business, we can be in a completely different place than we are 12 months from now if we just plan our work and work our plan. So I just want to throw that in there. Like this is beyond huge to me because this right here is going to really break it down and give me all the things I've been looking to achieve this next year, as long as I can stay disciplined to what we put down on this paper. So awesome.
I want to throw a congratulations out to somebody, and I don't know if he's on the call or not today, but about 7-8 months ago, I got a call from a young guy in our group that's 21, and he said, just got in the business and I want to figure out how to make this work. I said, okay. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I said, okay. Well, first I said, do you have a big sphere of influence that might be buying or selling? He's like, I'm 21. Nobody buying or selling that's my age, my friends. I said, okay. Is your family really connected? Are they somehow real influencers in the marketplace? No. I said, okay, do you have money? Just like Jake just said, right? Do you have money? No, but I don't have a lot of expenses because I still live with my parents. I said, well, that's great. I said, then you only have one option. You have to talk to a lot of people. And I said, and if you want to figure it out, the best thing is to talk to people that have already said that they want to buy or sell real estate. which is what, guys? FSBOs and expireds. And that was all the conversation. I said, and there's a million training classes. You can go online and figure it out. Like at EXP, our training's there. You can spend $100, get these programs. You can figure it out. 7 months later, I start tracking and I see he's doing deals. He calls me, says, I'm thinking about hiring a coach. And I said, you're doing so great. What are you doing? Well, I just did what you told me. I just started calling expired and FSBOs, and I didn't know what I was saying, but I started figuring it out. And pretty soon they're just listing with me. And he's doing a couple deals a month. Actually, I just saw he closed 4 in the last 30 days. And here's a kid, 21 years old, no experience in real estate, no money to spend on marketing, but he was willing, and he didn't have expertise. He wasn't a trained sales guy before. He just had a vision, and he had a commitment. And as we talk about leads, different sources have better conversions. They might have a harder rejection plan, but they have better conversion. So realize that nobody has to be special. Not that Daniel's not special. What's special about Daniel is he did the freaking work.
Yeah.
But what's realization is he didn't have some specialized knowledge. Jeff used to cold call, but the truth is when he got into real estate, he was a master cold caller. But the truth is he did it all to pay his way through college. He had a skill set when he came in, right? But Daniel didn't. So, and that's what Jason just said is anybody, if you're willing to do the stuff that's uncomfortable, that's on the other side of your fear, can change your life in the next 90 to 126 months in terms of your financial picture. It's not going to change in 30 days in real estate, but 90 to 120 days, it could be massively different.
Yeah,
that helps.
We say all the time that you got to get really, really, really comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you can do that, then you can overcome a lot of fear. So I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to jump into, so when it comes down to breaking down some of the numbers, when I look at conversion rates from conversation to appointment to sign and all that, obviously that can vary greatly based on the lead pillar or lead source, whatever it is. But it can vary greatly because your SOI might be different than a Zillow Flex lead or a for sale by owner expired lead. So these conversion rates, we use Sisu, and we track thousands and thousands and thousands of metrics with our team because we've got a lot of team members and all the transactions we do. And so it breaks down to, it tells us what our average price point is. We have a team goal, whatever, I can plug in this team goal here and team volume goal, and it'll spit out exactly how many conversations and appointments and signed agreements and closings that we need to have as a team to reach that goal based on the past. And so, but what I wanted to kind of touch base on some of the conversion rates that we experience so that you can use them. And again, this is general over all sources. Now, like I said, it'll be a little different, but for us as a team, we've got to have 100 conversations to get to 2 to 5 appointments. And those could be minute to 2 minute conversations where they could be a potential nurture, not the hang up conversations where, it's not calls, because you might make 100 calls and get to 20 to 30 or 10 or 15 conversations that, you get a conversation where someone's, I might buy or sell in the next year or two. And to us, that's an opportunity for a nurture or a future follow-up. And they would go into a special bucket where we're going to do follow-up. But those are going to create more conversations along the way, right? So 2 to 5 out of 100, 2 to 5% to get to an appointment to sign. Again, I go have a listing appointment with someone. You all know approximately what your conversion rate might be. I would imagine it's pretty high. You go on 5 listing appointments, you're probably getting 3 or 4 of those. And if you're not getting a higher conversion rate, then one of the focus areas in your 135 business plan might be to get better, right? How to have a better listing presentation, how to have a better listing appointment, how to communicate your value to your potential clients so that you can convert more. You go from 3 signed to 4 signed, and you've increased your percentage by 20% or whatever it is, just by learning. And that's the focusing on your business and spending time learning each week. So 65 to 70% is what I believe our team appointments to sign, 68%. And again, these numbers are rough. I mean, they're there, but we've got 40 agents on our team, and so not everybody tracks. We're not all tracking perfectly. And one of our main objectives for this next year is to get really, really good and solid on tracking, like almost like we're gonna force it. Otherwise, we're not paying out the commissions or something. I don't know. Sydney's on the call, so she's going to love that. But we've got to get this information so that I can help everyone do better and do more in less time. And so appointments to Met, 68% signed. So I have a listing. How many of those, or I have a buyer that's committed to me, showing them homes. They're committed to me. How many of those are going to under contract or going to a pending? It's about 67%. That's just what the stats show in our system. It could be a little higher or a little lower. So looking at some of those conversion rates, and again, you'll get this portion, this IC or the CSU calculator is built into our platform. If you're with CSU, you already have it. There will be a link for CSU if you want to check it out, try a trial on it. I don't know. I want to say, I don't know how much it is, 30, 40 bucks a month, but it really can help you run your business and track everything, create your goals. Some of the CRMs will also do that. I know Follow Up Boss does. I think KV Core has some goals and things that you can track there as well. And then of our pendings and closed, 80, 90% of them go to the closing table. 10% maybe fall out of escrow.
Hey, Jake, I'm not sure if you saw it, but Joe posted a question here in the chat. He says, what do you see as far as metrics possibly changing in this market environment with less qualified buyers? Are your metrics holding pretty close to what you were seeing previously?
Well, they're going to obviously, all of these metrics start with conversations. So yeah, we're finding we have to have more conversations. We have to make more dials. We have to have more attempts because there's less buyers in the market. And so we're not going to get as many. And so it's just a matter of doubling down. And if we want to maintain the number of sales we have in a market that's 30, 40% lower, then we have to actually increase, right? So as far as metrics, I think you just have to have more conversations to get those appointments. Once you have the appointments, then it's a matter of, and you might see a few more fall out of escrow because we have a bad lender or something that didn't give us a good pre-approval and they didn't get it, or it comes down to the numbers or rates change or something. But really, again, we focus on picking up the phone, having those conversations through text or phone or in person, and increasing that.
Well, I think what Joe adds too on that, and Joe always talks about this is times we got to get better at our sales skills.
Yeah.
This is a time we need to be reading that book now on how to become better on the phone with sales. What are the right words that we could say? Do you need to study NLP? Right. So, and then we got to get clear about who's really a buyer and who's not, and how you're spending your time with them. And a couple of years ago, it was like everybody bought. It didn't matter. Like just everybody figured it out. Today, you're going to find a lot more looky-loos that aren't committed. They're interested. And that was what I was trying to say. They're interested versus committed. Just like, are you interested in your business or committed? We got to be really clear because we're going to have a lot more interested people right now than are totally committed. So we're always trying to find those truly committed people and discern those out faster.
Hey, Sydney, can I use you as an example in Sisu? If you're listening.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I want to just do a quick example on Sisu. So I'm going to just take Sydney on our team and pull up her information. Where we at? Right there. So this automatically, obviously, because of the software, it pulls in what her average sales price is and some of her numbers and so forth. And I can simply just plug in and say she wants to make 200,000. In 2024. I'm assuming it's going to be higher than that, but we can break down. She had, on our, obviously with this, we have to factor in team splits because we're a team as well. And so we factor in all that information. Some of the stats, some of the tracking, some of the data didn't get into Sisu for the full year. And so we're working on improving that. That's the main goal for 2024 is really make sure it's all syncing from Follow Up Boss and so forth. But, if I take this 3%, change that to 3% and adjust some of these numbers to what they probably are more likely, I can just hit calculate. And this can be done in a spreadsheet by just doing some simple formulas and so forth. And let me zoom in on this a little bit. Let's see. And basically, it just gives me everything I need. It tells me what the volume needs to be, 14 million in volume, under contract volume, how much closed GCI, how many sellers, buyers, and so forth, but breaking it down to 3,300 conversations over the course of a year. And then it breaks it down how many that is a month, 275 conversations. To get 275 meaningful conversations is not quite as easy as it, there's a lot of attempts to get to that, right? And so you might have to make 500 attempts a week to get to that kind of conversation level. And that's where we talked earlier about sacrifice. It's, if you want to make that kind of income, you're going to have to sacrifice something. And if you're not sacrificing your time, maybe you're hiring a VA or an ISA to make those calls for you and set those appointments for you. So it breaks it all down, and this is what we like to use, and this is what we talk about in our meetings, and we focus on those conversations. We have to start at that point to be able to get to the other metrics.
And Jake, that breaks it down. Is that I was at Build recently, or in July, and Verl, one of the top coaches in the world, has been doing this for like 30 years. He breaks down these numbers, and he says it's so simple. Here's the reality. If you want to make, about 50 to 75 bucks a year, 75,000, prospect about an hour a day. You can do that. If you want to make 100 to 200, you need to prospect about 2 hours a day and get good at it. If you want to make 200 or 250 or more, you've got to be prospecting 3 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week. It's just that, he's like, guys, I've been doing this for years. I help all these top agents. That's the number. That's where it works. And then he talks about get it done in the morning, because that's when people have the most energy. And that's what we talked about. And I come back to that, Jay, because I think it's so critical. Is I prospected for a lot of years, and I could tell you that if I was to call people between 4 and 6 at night or 5 and 7, I'm going to get a lot more pickups. That's the truth. They're home. But the problem? I was terribly inconsistent at that time of the night, because the later the day goes, the more chances are those whirlwinds get in your way. And so you're better off doing something even when the results aren't as good, at a time when you really are most likely to get it done. And we'll come back to this, and I'll mention it's like, for most agents, there should be no appointments between 9 and 12 anywhere else. Should be working, prospecting. You should not be going to closings before 12 o'clock. If you choose to still go to closings, you need to schedule those and go after 12. You shouldn't be doing buyer appointments before 12. Now, there's occasional rules, because the deal is your energy is so limited. It doesn't take a lot of energy to go to a closing, but it takes a lot of energy to dial for another 30 minutes, unless you're a freak, right? If there's anybody that's a freak like that, we'll hire you, right, Jake? The other is it's easy to go show buyers with energy. But you want to block everything out. That should be your sacred time. And the top agents I've found that are growing businesses, that's their sacred time, period.
And you wouldn't believe how great it feels. Just like when I go to the gym, I can't stand the gym. I love when I walk out the door of the gym, but the rest of the day is so much better because I accomplished it. I feel like I've accomplished it. And same thing with prospecting and doing the stuff that we don't necessarily love doing. And it's amazing. You'll do 2 or 3 hours of prospecting, and nothing might not come of it in that one day, but business will come from something else just because you put that time, that energy into it. And so, yeah, it's getting it done and out of the way early. And if you're really after it, then, opening up another period of time and later in the day, and maybe it's twice a week, 3 times a week that you're going to do that 4 to 6, so that you can spend less time prospecting, because you'll get more answers, more pickups, right? And that's just for prospecting through calling. But those 2 or 3 hours could be anything. It could be doing an open house on a weekend, or a couple open houses. It could be door knocking, or calling your SOI, or whatever. But when you're it's just more efficient when you use the phone or use your CRM and text, because you can get a lot more conversations in and get to more appointments faster.
I was going to jump in kind of with Joe's question and what you're saying. So I'm really big on making calls. I'm really big on contacts. And I found that I'm having to make 170 to 180 dials to get to my 20 contacts. Like that's gone up drastically from last year. But on the other hand, when we talk about for sale by owners, we talk about expireds. I can call 10 and get 5 contacts and get some appointments, right? I mean, it really depends on what you want to do and where your threshold is. And really big on this goal planning, and what it just keeps going through my head is when we stick to what we put down for our goals for 2024. This is our job. This is our business. We will not have to restart our business every 60 days because we veered off of what our goal was, what our plan was. That's what's really big about this: keeping it consistent, being disciplined to it. And that way you're not every 60 days saying, oh, I have to find business again, because you did those daily activities all the time and you didn't let things get in the way. Like John was saying, I don't go to home inspections anymore. My closings, if they have to be scheduled in the morning, then of course I like to go, but I schedule those in the afternoon. I used to have a coach that he would tell his team, you come in from 9 to 11, make 20 contacts, and you can do whatever you want for the rest of the day. And the reason he did that was because he knew once they made those 20 contacts, however they did it, for sale by owner, making calls, expireds, door knocking, however they did that, they would have appointments the rest of the day, the rest of the week. Right. So, I mean, it really comes down in your business plan. You've got to have these tasks in there, and they've got to be something that you can manage and you can accomplish. So I just want to throw that in there. It's about 170 to 180 calls I'm having to make to get to 20 contacts. So.
And you're using an auto dialer to do that, right? So guys understand it's a lot easier than you think. You can get an auto dialer for about 80 to $100 a month. And you can typically make that. I mean, a good auto dialer, depending on your single or double dial, you're going to be able to knock 100 dials out in less than an hour. I mean, Jason, that's probably hour and a half, right? That you're doing that. Most of
about a couple hours. It depends on what we are. Yeah, a couple hours. It comes down to me. It's easier to do that than it's easier to have to look at my sky slope and not see a closing for next month, right? Like what's our threshold? I'd rather spend 2 hours making dials than not have something coming up in the future. So, it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we get there. But once again, if we're able to break through, I didn't like to call for sale by owners. I couldn't stand it. Now, let's understand the market shifted a little bit. These for sale by owners, it's not as easy for them to sell as what they could have done a year and a half ago. So guess what? They're more open to our calls now. And it really depends on how you approach that. So I would encourage you guys to make those calls and get those contacts. Yesterday, I had a tough time getting contacts. So what did I do? I went and I got a second coffee, and I talked to the girl who was there. And I said, hey, do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell a house? We talked while the other person was making the coffee. I gave her my card, and something might come of it. Whatever it took to get that contact was what I was after. So anyways.
Yeah. And you count that as, a contact conversation. Same thing as, how do I have a real estate related conversation with somebody? And you can do that on a 365-day consistent basis, and that pipeline will start spitting out, or the funnel will start spitting out. I shared in the chat on the Google Drive. Also, so Sisu, full disclosure, I am an investor in this company. I invested in them several years ago because I truly loved what they did. I used to use a spreadsheet before. I'm not necessarily pushing it, but it has been a big game changer for our business. I was going to show you some of the dashboards, what they do. I mean, it'll track your stuff so that you can really start producing at a high level and an efficient level, because it just plugs it all in. It gives you all your conversion rates and so forth. It gives you all your numbers and so forth. So there's a lot of other stuff that you can do in here. I think there's probably a few people that maybe use it on the call, but a lot of the big teams with the XP are using it. Solo agents are using it because it's an easy way to track your activities rather than writing them down on a piece of paper or using a spreadsheet. It does all the calculations and everything for you. So anyway. Those links are in there, plus the drive has all that information. So any questions, anybody want to share maybe what they're doing with their goals, goal setting, any ideas, anything, questions, anything else that we can help with?
Hey, I wanted to just say something real quick, to the lead thing and stuff like that. And we're talking about conversion, and then so many people, it's all about activity. But, I know, Jake, at your place, you're obviously probably helping people work on conversion as well. You know, so many people sit there and say, I need more leads, I need more leads, I need more leads. And I'm thinking, but you're not even that good. You know, it reminds me of Glengarry Glen Ross, where it's like, if I gave you the good leads, you'd just waste them. So don't only think about making the contact, but think about getting better as well. Jason was offering to do some role playing with people the other day and stuff like that. And it's like, you have to continually get better, particularly in this environment. So don't just think you need more leads. You know, I always say that I can do more on less leads than a lot of people can on more, just because I have to, because of the way my lack of systems are set up. So, you know, for me to fully maximize, I need to take in some of these things these guys are doing and get better systems. But the one thing I do have going for me is conversion. So if you can match systems and conversion, you're going to crush me and you're going to crush most of the people on the call. Make sure you're getting better in addition to the systems. So
absolutely agree with that.
When Jason and Sydney and those guys, Jason, when you're calling every day, when you're calling 180 people, where do you get those names?
So, you know, these are from past clients that I had. I used either past clients that I've paid to get into my database. So like I'll do Property Boost. I was using another platform, and I'll remember the name as soon as the Zoom is done. But anyways, it's paid leads I put into my platform. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's just say that you're not making 180 calls a day on people that you obviously did deals with before. Otherwise, you will have did 15 million deals in your career.
Right.
So what that means is Jason is calling people that are in your sphere or somebody that you've done deals with previously. Sydney is calling a lot of people that I've done deals with previously, probably. So if you're not calling your people, somebody else is. You know, I made a few calls the other day, somewhat lazily, but I thought, you know what, here's a few that are laying in front of me. I just made some dials. And one gal said, you know, hey, unfortunately, we went through a divorce. We're going to sell in January. Somebody else is also getting ready to go on the market. And I'm going, you know, I sold this person a home 8 years ago. If I hadn't called them, or if I hadn't made that contact, who were they going to pick up? Who were they going to use when January came around? It wasn't going to be me, probably, you know. So you better call your people before somebody else does. In this day and age, everybody's not just going back to their person because you got all these other yahoos. They're dialing nonstop all the time. Get in front of your people before Jason takes them or Sydney takes them or Jake Rockwell's amazing team takes them. You got to stay on your people.
Yeah, I was going to throw this in there because, you know, my background was auto industry. We used to also buy cars, and, you know, our GM, our sales manager would say, you know, when we'd say, hey, there's no cars to buy out there, he'd say, how many cars did you pass on the way to work today? Right. So that's the same thing with houses. How many houses did we pass on the way to work today? Right. We are on the way into the office, or the way to go get coffee. There's business out there everywhere. It just depends on if we want to do it. Do we want to go knock on those doors? How many homes did we pass that they look like they need a lot of work? Well, guess what? A wholesaler is probably making a call to that person right now. You know what I mean? Like, knock on that door, get out there, go after it. One of the things that, you know, we may have thrown in here, follow-up has got to be in your daily activity. It has got to be in there. I don't know how many times, and I hate to say it, but let's just say it, that I've lost business from not following up. So when you're doing your business planning, follow-up has got to be in there. That's the key to your conversions, is following up with your clients. If we're not putting that in there after the initial call, then we're missing out on that business, and some Yahoo like Joe's going to end up calling them and stealing that business from me. So
one of the big focus areas for us this year is, I mean, we got 50,000+ people in our database, and someone said it to me at EXPCon. They're like, you don't need more leads. You need to focus on your database. So we're implementing some new tools and really a heavier focus on the existing database. One of those tools likes to send me an email whenever one of our people in our database listed their house with another agent at another company. And so it's information to me that tells me, hey, these people are selling, but we're not selling their house. Why is that? It's because we're not diving in and getting those conversations and doing the follow-up. But we're digging deeper into our existing database, because I think there's a stat that's 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 10 in your database will transact or refer someone to transact in the next 12 months. So if you have a 700 person database, there's 100 sales that are going to happen in there. Obviously, you're not going to get every one of them, but if you do all the things that you should be doing, you're going to capture a lot more of those. And it's really that easy.
And one last thing on that other day when I was making those few phone calls, and proud of myself at the end of the day that I'd actually knocked them out. But yet, right after I got done, and again, I'm feeling fairly good about myself, all of a sudden my dog's barking. And I went, Romy, what's up, man? Chill out, you know? Oh, I see why you're barking. A realtor's knocking a sign into the neighbor's yard. Literally, I'm like looking out my front door and my exact neighbor. And I'm like going, you've got to be freaking kidding me. So I go into MLS really quick, and sure as shit, it was just listed like 15 minutes earlier. Now, I'll give you this. It was listed with a relative. However, I would have never got the listing. I've never talked to them about selling their home. I didn't even think it was obviously on the radar. Who else could have that happen to them? Because you either don't know your neighbor well enough, you haven't had conversations, you're not saying, hey, you know, if by chance you ever run into anybody, anything else like that, at least have the conversation so you don't have to look out there at the end of the day when you worked so hard and then watch somebody knocking a freaking sign in the neighbor's yard. So,
Yeah. I have the same problem. There's lots of signs without our name on it in our neighborhood, but you know, you want to own a neighborhood, whether it's your neighborhood or another. If you're farming a neighborhood, it's really owning that neighborhood. And we teach with door knocking. It's, hey, I'm Jake. I'm the designated broker for our team for this. I'm the designated broker for this neighborhood. I just wanted to introduce myself and make sure you know that I'm here as a resource for you. Anything real estate, anything recommendations or whatever. And you do that on a consistent basis once every 3 months, and you can really take over a neighborhood fairly well if it's done consistently. So what else do we got? We got a few minutes.
Can you hear me, Jake?
I can.
I have something to say, just goes along with this, I think, and you guys probably already talked about it, but just like being able to touch, you know, your database, which I'm big into databases, and I know Jake is big time into that. It's like also know that a few calls a year to each of your people is crucial, but you can hit about another 35 touches that you can set up automated and not have to worry about it ever again. And that needs to be happening. You can use tools like HomeBot, or just set it up through your KV Core and have automatic touches set up. It's pretty easy. And then you're doing a whole lot of work once, and then it's doing it for you for the rest of the year, which is huge. And then you just add your calls in, and it makes the calls seem simple, because then you're getting maybe 40 touches a year to each client. Anyway.
Yeah, and there's lots of tools. You know, obviously the CRMs will help you do that, KV Core, whatever CRM you use. And there's other tools. We're using Fellow for seller leads or for sellers. It's a really great tool. It replaced HomeBot for us. It's more expensive than HomeBot, but we're getting a lot of hand raising opportunities from it. That's also in the slide. And there's other ones. And yeah, you know, newsletters, emails, texts, coffee appointments, events. You know, all of those would count as those touches. And yeah.
I was just going to throw this in here. I know we have a few minutes left, but a lot of what we're talking about with this business planning, making sure that we can track what we're going to be doing, right? Tracking is key. If we can't track or we can't measure what we're putting down for our goals, you know, it's going to be hard to hit those, right? So whatever you're going to be putting down for your goals, make sure that you have a way that you can track them. You know, a big thing with tracking, and I know John, Jake, a lot of you guys would agree, is it's not just knowing where the business is coming from, but then it's knowing where it's coming from and knowing where to put money at for next year, right? Why would I put more into Zillow if the majority of my deals came from, you know, Facebook boost, you know, et cetera. So making sure you can track your goals to what you have. And then just knowing, you know, I mean, this is about business planning, but a lot of it came down to lead generating, because that's really what we need for 2024 for our business. So, you know, double down your lead generation, get involved with role play groups, you know, look at training you can do. I wasn't a big reader up until this last year and a half. And now I have a book I'm consistently reading and just learning from that I'm taking on to, you know, putting into business. And, you know, funny enough, it wasn't always easy for me to get on the phone like this or do lead generating like this. And after coming to these core 90s and talking to more people and producers and reading books and just diving in, it's made those conversations easier. Where I thought it was very uncomfortable to make calls, I realized most people are not mean. You know, it's pretty easy to talk to people. Most of the time when you ask them, hey, are you looking to buy or sell a house? They're pretty friendly. Most people right now in this market, they want to know what's going on because they think the sky is falling, which guess what? It's not falling. We just have to work a little harder. So just, you know, make sure you can track whatever your goals are. So that way you can look at it, you know, monthly, quarterly, you know, at the end of the year and see where you could adjust to make 2025 even a better year. So just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, what I'm going to do too is I'll throw in a couple more documents that kind of help with some of the business planning. So there is some spreadsheets that you can use that are already built to kind of help track your lead measures. So going with what you're saying, Jason, is how to easily do that. Obviously, you can create your own spreadsheet and do it, but there's some other ones that I'll throw into that folder so that you can have some examples.
I'd like to throw a couple things in before we finish up. And one of these guys is that most of you in here are people, and people like you. Whether you realize it or not, they like you, and that's why they do business. You can know all the things in the world, but at the end of the day, people choose to work with people they like. And that's probably why they worked with you. So a couple simple things we can add to this that I would add is that how many note cards are you doing a week? It's a very simple thing for anyone to do. I'll be writing 10 note cards a week, put the stamp on and mail them out. It doesn't have to be just past clients. It could be another realtor, but you're putting good energy out into the world. And some people are it's kind of fooey, but the idea is, guys, it matters. When was the last, and I said this to Jake's team last week, that over here, I have a recliner a little bit over that I sit and read. And there is a postcard there that Luis sent to me, I think 3 years ago, that he uses send out cards. And he took a picture off my Facebook post of me when I was working out really hard and I'm showing my biceps. I'm really proud of myself at that point. And he sends a picture of it and it's on the front, just said, "Hey man, congratulations." That's sitting there still. Isn't that crazy? 3 years later, how often have I thought about him in 5 years? And he's back at EXP now, which is great. And I had a conversation with him the other day. But the thing is, guys, it's like that makes a difference. When was the last time you got a postcard or a card from somebody that said how great you were? That makes a difference. Think about who that is. The other is breaking breads. I just love the idea of having coffees and going to quick lunches with people. It's one, it doesn't take a lot of energy for the most part. And the way I'd be doing that, guys, is I'd be looking through your database and see who are the people that have referred you the most amount of people. Because who's likely to refer you again? People that have already referred you. Just like your clients that were, I've learned, like online leads are great, and you want to build those to build your business, but they don't refer at the same level of people that were referred to you because they learned an action. So I'd say, can you get in 1 or 2 coffees or 3 coffees a week? They don't have to be long, 30 minutes, boom. Because the effect is to spend time with them, not to solve all the problems of the world. So we're talking $10 worth of coffee. And if you go in and say, who are those people that have already referred you 1 or 2 or 3 people? Those are the first people you want to be with. And you don't have to talk about real estate, talk about them. And when you talk about them, they're going to start asking about you. And they're going to feel special. So, we get out of this hardcore stuff, which is, the dialing, which I think you have to do. But remember, there's soft things you can do that can have huge effects, and it also will build you up. I can tell you, every time you write a postcard, you have to think about, if I was going to write a postcard to Allie, it would be like, Allie, I just love how you take risks. I love how you have made a vision to go to Bend. And yeah, I know you went over there and the things worked out differently with your house than you expected. But man, you just inspired me. I'm making it a little bit long. You'd say it shorter, but the idea is you inspired me with your risk taking. Now, one of the things that makes me feel better because I'm having to think about something special about somebody. How's she going to feel when she gets that car? Allie, how would you feel if you got that car?
I feel great being acknowledged and knowing that you took some time to make that happen. It's different than just in passing or in conversation.
And I also know Allie know enough that she doesn't actually give herself enough credit for so many of the wonderful things she does. So actually stopping to make her acknowledge herself is even more powerful. And do you think she's more likely to refer people to me? If I was active selling real estate, do you think she's more likely to refer somebody down here to me than to Jake? Probably. And it's not a competition, guys, but get what I'm saying. So these are the soft things that we can do. So add the hard and the soft into what you're doing. Anything else, Jakey?
That's it. As always, I'm here to help anybody. So reach out, text, call, email, and be happy to help in any way I can. So appreciate all of you being here, and hope everyone takes some time and actually over the next month and, take a half a day or a couple hours and really sit down, put your phone face down, don't look at your emails, and focus on that business plan and the goals. Get that out of the way early, and then you could even get a jump start on it and get that momentum started before waiting till after Christmas and January and so forth. So,
Jason, anything for you?
No, I mean, it's all been great. I mean, I appreciate everybody being here, what you guys brought to this. So thank you very much.
You too,
So as
buddy.
we wrap up,
Thank
I want
you.
to say one last thing, guys. I'm going to say one last thing as Jake just starts the music. It's all about commitment, and it's about making yourself accountable. When you make big goals, and I learned this years ago, if you want to get over a wall that's really high, how do you do it? So I know, like I can say to the ladies, if there was a 10-foot wall to get over, if I had your baby and I threw your baby over, well, you would have killed somebody to get over that wall. You would have dug around that wall. You would have figured out how to get over that wall. So when you start putting these goals together, who can you share those goals with that create some accountability so that you are embarrassed if you don't get them done? Create some pressure for yourself for that wall that you are committed to get up over that wall, because nobody's doing big deals is that special. They've learned a few things. Most of them have worked a little harder, and they've stayed focused on what needs to be done, and they keep learning every day. And, we talked about reading, guys. People say they don't have time. But if you actually carried a book with you, and instead of scrolling when you were at the doctor's office on Facebook, you read for 10 minutes. Instead of scrolling when you're on the toilet, read for 10 minutes. You always can find an extra 10 or 20 minutes a day. And if you read 10 or 20 minutes a day over the course of a year, it's going to change your life.